Hey, what's up? I got at least one more video, and then I'm gonna just make one last comment along the line of the last video, and then I'm gonna get back to my subject before it becomes melodramatic. But I just had something of a teachable moment, and that happened while I was filming this series today, and I was want to talk about that. But all I want to say is that so I've been I consider myself a professional driver because I have that's what my driver's license says, and I have experiences with that, and I think also skills with that, both like hard skills like with like around like vehicles, like the engine and so forth, but then operating the vehicle, like different vehicles like within traffic, and then also the soft or the social component that would go with being a professional driver, because you have like maybe customers, clients, passengers, managers, peers, and professionals. Maybe your real professionals. As much as I give professionals a hard time, your transportation professionals might be your real professionals. That because there's an exception to all things. So I've talked about these other creatures called professionals that can hurt people, but sometimes your transportation professionals are like a different tier. Uh, because they help make life viable. But all professionals make life viable, it can be said. So I have to slow down with that too. But uh, but all I meant to say is that I was being trained in one of my professional trainings as a professional driver, and there was a person in there who was he had a personal vendetta and problem with cars, even as he's been trained as a professional driver. But that's actually not a contradiction, because that was for like a metro or like a transit with that was for like a city metro driver that would be part of public infrastructure that would help people live without relying on personal vehicles. And that was like a really big opportunity that we had there. And some of your seniority within training was a function of when you had applied and when you had been cleared of your physical clearance, when you were fully brought on board, had to do with some of your privilege and seniority already. Seniority is very significant as in certain professions, certain industries, especially transportation, and it can really have big consequences. Seniority can play out favorably and unfavorably right off the bat. So I had a little bit of seniority on him because of when I applied. It might have had to do because I was already a driver, but also when I applied. And so they're letting you pick like which garage you would operate out of, because that had to do with what region of the city. It's like a broad metropolitan city, and it can affect the logistics of your life, where you're able to work. And they kind of shuffle those drivers from time to time, so they are mandated to go to different garages periodically. And then there's different like gravy routes, or difficult like fill-in routes, and they sometimes they stick the new people on the really more difficult stuff, and that might be good for training, but sometimes I think it's not. You should get someone worked up to knowing the role before you throw them on different stuff. But I had the option to pick a better garage to work out, where we needed more further training before we were it got cut loose. And I would have had a better experience and probably outcome if I would have pick that better garage. But he wanted that one, and he also didn't have access to transportation at that time, so that could have really put a dent in his livelihood, and how he was able to operate without having access to transportation in his life at that time. It was like he lived at like a nice building in a downtown area, and he wanted to work at that garage that was very close where he was at. And I had the ups on him, but I let him keep that. And then that role at the other garage didn't work out because I had some there weren't the same quality of professionals at that other garage to my taste. But all I meant to say is that he said that the worst thing in life, worse than the devil, worse than what makes life so bad is cars. That's what he said. Cars are bad. Cars are no good. Cars are bad. That's what he said. But I want to say that if you think about one of the most dangerous things in life, like what can get a person to lose their life the quickest, or have some of the most consequential, painful, deadly, fatal, debilitating outcomes, both in terms of just simply like traffic, but also like in terms of crime and whatnot. A lot of it would have to do around cars. And then also a lot of times you might go to like you might think that it's you might start to get like, some people are afraid of the freeway. Like I had a person that was family of a person I was caring for, and she was impressed that I was comfortable driving a vehicle on a freeway. But I had been driving on freeways by a long time by that point. But sometimes you don't actually appreciate how dangerous things that you're used to doing are, like driving on freeways. but people who don't drive as much can still feel they're not as jaded, so they can appreciate how dangerous that is. But even with that, even as you're going on like fast highways, or you're having weather conditions, or maybe you're in a area of town that's from a different socioeconomic background than you are, and you start to get a little less comfortable. I had friends from the Southwest that visited me in the North where I'm at, and they were a little bit uncomfortable around the area where we're at, where we were actually in a decent we were in a they had nothing to worry about more so than where they were visiting from, but it was just different for them, and they're feeling on edge. But really, as anything with cars has to do that's dangerous, it's way more dangerous close to where you're from, to where your real neighborhood is, where you're from. That's where you more likely have any type of horrible outcome around cars, such as like dropping your guard when you're leaving the alley and you didn't know that someone was right there to form a T like that, like T-bone someone coming out the alley when you're not as vigilant because you're close to home. But closer to home, cars are some of the most deadly, dangerous stuff in modern society, and that too, closer to where a person resides, is more dangerous like that. But I just want to say that with this video, but just for awareness and the sake of learning. And I can offer that with my background as a professional driver. But what I wanted to say is that so sometimes you can appreciate like a challenge and even like criticism as the best means to improve and to have the next step, the next content. And sometimes you can appreciate things by changing the terms, but you keep the expression, or you keep in mathematics you can change the terms but keep the expression, or maybe keep the expression but change the terms, and you can get different congruence, that is meaning and understanding from that. So sometimes you can rephrase things and understand something. So something that would seem arcane, disingenuous, meaningless, insulting, you change the terms, or you just engage it and appreciate it, and there can be value in it. So once I was saying I get antagonism a lot as a function of maybe my personality style, my background, my family life, my appearance. I get a lot of antagonism naturally, such as the antagonism of being accosted by a vehicle of someone I don't know, as I make a video about my experiences being marginalized and confronted and getting all different types of social and economic and personal violence, antagonism, and or deprivation. But so I was once in a group setting after I had experienced conflict in a disingenuous way in my life to put me in that position. But then I was making like agreeable, good faith, what I thought was inspirational or enlightening commentary, and a person was like, yeah, but I used to get messed up on lithium. Why are you here? And I was like, dang, I didn't know you could get. At that time I didn't know that you could have experiences off of lithium, because I was like, ain't that stuff that you put in those cool CD players and listen to? You actually consume that? That was kind of interesting. But then he was like, but why are you here? And sometimes I think if you were to just rephrase that as like why, like on a mathematical axis, it's likely where you find yourself is a significant reason as to where you find yourself it can speak to how you find yourself, why you find yourself, what you find yourself, all that can overlap. But I would say that a lot of what we do is part of like a function, and it's a very deep function that's beyond what we can appreciate in linear terms of 3 dimensions, because life is really far beyond that. Even if you were to appreciate it in the strictest mathematical sense, reality is deeper than what we appreciate as 3 dimensions. But I think that you are in the highest mathematics, like calculus, you go between concept and congruence, where some of the properties of congruence, as we understand within 3 dimensions, a concept can go beyond that and then come back into that, and you can have greater understanding and engineering and design by going between. I think they would call that like infinity or zero. You go beyond, you go into pure concept that transcends the dimensions we're used to, and then you can come back into these dimensions, and there's property with that. But I think some of our reality exists within cycles and functions and algorithms that go beyond what we appreciate as 3 dimensions, such as our thought process, communications, decisions, actions that redouble. But why you find what you find might be a function of where you find it upon the trajectory of a function that is an axis that is attended by a function that are different ripples in patterns in symmetry with previous things that have been thought, did, and said by you, and importantly others affecting you, and others leading up to and influencing you is why and where you find yourself